Welcome to the course. I'm thrilled to have you here as we embark on this exciting journey together. Today, we are diving into a fascinating topic, mastering the past simple tense, particularly focusing on regular verbs. This is a crucial aspect of English that you'll encounter in everyday conversations, stories, and more. To get the most out of this course, I encourage you to follow the slides carefully. Take notes on the important points we discuss, as writing things down can help reinforce your understanding. If you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to revisit the content. It's perfectly normal to seek clarification, and doing so will only deepen your learning experience. Throughout this course, we will explore various aspects of the past simple tense, including how to identify regular verbs, how to form them, and how to use them effectively in sentences. By the end of our time together, you will not only understand the rules, but also feel confident using this tense in your everyday conversations. Imagine being able to share your past experiences clearly and accurately. What a valuable skill that is. So, get ready to engage with the material, practice, and enjoy the process. You're here to learn something new and exciting, and I am confident that by the end of this course, you will master the past simple tense with regular verbs. Let's get started and have some fun while learning. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us which city you are watching from. Continuing our course, let's delve into the concept of the past tense. This tense is essential for expressing actions that have already been completed and defined in time. It's like looking back at a snapshot of a moment that has passed. Once it's done, it's done. When we talk about something being completed, we mean that the action has a clear start and finish. For example, if you say, "I walked to the store," you're indicating that you did this action in the past, and it's not ongoing now. It's interesting to notice how this clarity helps in communication. You can share your experiences without confusion, making it easier for others to understand your stories. Now, let's consider how we define these moments. It's not just about knowing the action is finished. We also know exactly when it took place. Think about saying, "I visited my friend last Saturday." You have a clear time frame, which helps paint a complete picture of your past experiences. Regular verbs are particularly important here. They are the most commonly used in everyday conversations, making them vital for effective communication. When you use them correctly, you can express your thoughts and experiences clearly. Imagine telling someone about your day or a trip you took. Using the past tense with regular verbs allows you to do this smoothly. As we move forward, we'll uncover more about how to construct sentences in the past simple tense. We'll explore the central rule that makes this tense so beautiful and straightforward. So, let's keep that momentum going as we transition into understanding the core mechanism behind using regular verbs in the past simple. Moving forward in our journey, let's explore what we call the golden rule of the past simple tense. This rule is what makes using regular verbs so beautiful and straightforward. You might find it fascinating that to form the past simple tense with regular verbs, all you need to do is add ed to the base form of the verb. For instance, if we take the verb play, it simply becomes played. Similarly, jump turns into jumped, and work becomes worked. Notice how this applies to all subjects. Whether you say, "I played," "she played," or "they played," the form of the verb stays the same. This consistency simplifies things greatly, especially compared to languages like Portuguese, where verbs change depending on the subject. This uniformity allows you to express past actions without worrying about altering the verb for different people. Think about how helpful this is when you're sharing stories. You can focus on the events themselves rather than getting tangled up in complex verb forms. It's interesting to observe how this rule applies to a variety of verbs, making it easier for learners to gain confidence. As you continue to practice, you'll find that recalling these forms becomes second nature. In the next slides, we will dive deeper into constructing affirmative sentences using this rule. We'll look at the structure of sentences, which is another critical piece of mastering the past simple tense. So, let's keep building on this foundation as we explore how to put these verbs into action in your everyday conversations. Now that we have grasped the golden rule of adding itd to form the past simple tense with regular verbs, let's focus on how to construct affirmative sentences. This is a significant step as it allows you to express your thoughts clearly and confidently. The basic structure for creating these sentences is quite simple: subject plus verb, ed plus complement. For example, if you say, "I played soccer yesterday," you can see how straightforward this is. Here, I is the subject, played is the verb in the past simple form, and soccer serves as the complement that completes the thought. It's interesting to notice how this clear structure helps convey your experiences without confusion. Let's take another example. She watched a movie last night. In this case, she is the subject, watched is the verb, and a movie provides the detail that enriches the sentence. This format is the foundation for sharing your past experiences effectively. Think about how you might tell a friend about your weekend. Using this structure, you could say, "They worked all day," clearly indicating what they did and when. By mastering this structure, you'll find it much easier to share stories about your life, whether it's recalling a special event or simply describing what you did yesterday. This clarity is crucial for effective communication. As we move forward, we'll explore some variations in spelling when adding ed to verbs. This will deepen your understanding and prepare you for the nuances in forming the past simple tense. So, let's keep building on what we've learned and dive into the details of spelling variations next. Continuing our exploration of the past simple tense, let's dive into spelling variations. While the general rule is to add id to regular verbs, it's important to remember that not every verb follows this straightforward path. Understanding these variations will help you form the past tense correctly and confidently. First, consider verbs that end with an e. In these cases, you simply add a d. For example, the verb like becomes liked, and love turns into loved. Notice how this makes things easier. There's no need for extra changes. You can quickly transform these verbs into their past forms without any hassle. Next, let's look at verbs that end in a consonant followed by a y. Here you need to change the y to I and add ed. For instance, try becomes tried, and study changes to studied. This is an interesting pattern to observe. It emphasizes how small changes in spelling can lead to the correct past form. Finally, we have verbs that follow a short consonant-vowel consonant, or CVC, pattern. For these verbs, you double the final consonant before adding adi. For example, stop changes to stopped, and plan becomes planned. This might seem tricky at first, but once you recognize the pattern, it becomes much easier to apply. By mastering these spelling variations, you'll enhance your ability to use the past simple tense accurately. This knowledge supports the structure we talked about earlier, allowing you to communicate your past experiences clearly. In our next slide, we'll explore the pronunciation of the id ending, which adds yet another layer to our understanding. So, let's keep building on this as we continue our journey. Moving forward in our journey, let's focus on an important aspect of the past simple tense, the pronunciation of the ed suffix. This is crucial for sounding natural when you speak English. You might be surprised to learn that the ed ending can actually be pronounced in 3 different ways, depending on the verb it follows. First, let's consider the sound tiao. This pronunciation occurs after voiceless consonants, or sounds that don't use your vocal cords. For example, in words like worky, talked, and watched, the ed sounds like t. Notice how this subtle difference can change the flow of your speech. Next, we have the d-da sound, which comes after voiced consonants, or sounds that do use your vocal cords. Words like played, cleaned, and enjoyed exemplify this pronunciation. Isn't it interesting how just the sound of the last letter of the verb can change the way we pronounce the ed ending? Finally, there's the pasht id trar sound. This occurs after verbs that end in t or d. For instance, in visited, wanted, and needed, you'll hear the full id sound. This distinction is important because it helps you maintain clarity in your speech, allowing listeners to understand you better. As you practice, try saying these verbs out loud, paying attention to how you pronounce the ed endings. This will not only improve your pronunciation, but also boost your confidence when speaking. In our next slide, we will explore how to form negative sentences in the past simple tense, which is another essential skill for expressing yourself clearly. Let's keep building on what we've learned. Continuing our course, let's dive into the realm of negation in the past simple tense. This is an essential aspect as it allows you to express what didn't happen, broadening your ability to communicate effectively. The key rule to remember here is that we use the auxiliary verb did to form negative sentences. When you negate a verb in the past simple, you say did not, or its contraction didn't. This auxiliary verb already carries the mark of the past, which is why the main verb returns to its base form without the aed. For example, if you wanted to say that you didn't play soccer yesterday, you would say, I didn't play soccer. Notice how play stays in its base form, while didn't indicates that the action happened in the past. This structure is very straightforward, and it allows you to negate statements quickly and clearly. Let's consider another example. She didn't watch the movie last night. Here again, watch remains unchanged. It's interesting to observe how this simple structure allows for clarity in communication. You can easily express what was not done, which is just as important as sharing what was done. As we build on this, think about how often you might need to negate things in everyday conversations. Maybe you want to explain to a friend what you didn't enjoy about a meal, or perhaps share that you didn't go to an event. Using the past simple negation structure will make your conversations more dynamic and informative. In the next slide, we'll explore how to form questions in the past simple tense, adding another layer to your communication skills. Let's keep progressing on this exciting journey. Now that we've established how to form negative sentences using the past simple tense, let's look at some practical examples to solidify our understanding. Remember, when you want to express what didn't happen, you simply use didn't, followed by the base form of the verb, which keeps everything clear and straightforward. For instance, consider the sentence, I didn't play soccer. Here, the verb play remains in its base form, and didn't tells us that the action did not occur in the past. It's interesting to notice how this structure allows you to easily communicate your experiences. Let's look at another example. She didn't watch the movie. Again, we see that watch is in its base form. This structure keeps the sentence simple and effective. You're not just stating what was done, but you're also sharing what was not done, which can be just as important in conversations. Now, think about the sentence, they didn't work yesterday. Here, work also stays in its base form, following the same pattern. By using didn't, you not only convey that the action of working didn't take place, but you also give context about when it was supposed to happen. As you practice these examples, consider how often you might want to express something you didn't do in your daily conversations. This skill enhances your ability to communicate clearly and effectively, allowing you to share your experiences more fully. In our next slide, we'll take a step further by learning how to form questions in the past simple tense. This will broaden your communication skills even more. So, let's keep moving forward. Moving forward in our journey, let's explore how to form questions in the past simple tense. This is a vital skill that allows you to inquire about past events, helping you engage in conversations more effectively. Just like we used the auxiliary verb did to create negative sentences, we will use it in the same way to form questions, but with a slight twist. When you're asking a question in the past simple, the auxiliary did always comes first. This structure looks like this. Did, followed by the subject, and then the main verb in its base form. For example, you might ask, did you play yesterday? Notice how play remains unchanged without the ed. This keeps the question clear and straightforward. Let's think about this in a practical context. Imagine you're catching up with a friend and you want to know if they attended a concert. You could simply ask, did you go to the concert? Here, using did at the start helps you quickly confirm whether the action occurred. It's interesting to observe how this structure not only makes your questions easy to form, but also emphasizes the past nature of the inquiry. As you practice, consider how often you find yourself wanting to ask others about their past experiences. Whether it's about a movie they saw or a trip they took, mastering this question format will help you engage in deeper conversations. In our next slide, we will look at short answers to these questions, which will further enhance your ability to communicate effectively. Let's keep building on what we've learned. Continuing our course, now that we've learned how to form questions in the past simple tense, let's delve into the concept of short answers. This is an important skill that allows you to respond quickly and clearly without unnecessary repetition. When someone asks you a question using "did you," you can provide a short answer that includes the auxiliary verb did, along with a brief affirmation or negation. For example, if your friend asks, "Did you play soccer yesterday?" you can simply respond, "Yes, I did." Notice that you're confirming the action without repeating the main verb, play. This makes your answer concise and effective. Alternatively, if the answer is negative, you would say, "No, I didn't." Here again, you're using did to indicate the past, while the main verb remains in its base form. This straightforward structure keeps your conversation flowing smoothly and avoids any confusion. Think about how this can simplify your interactions. If someone asks if you watched a movie last night, you can respond quickly with, "Yes, I did," if you did, or "No, I didn't," if you didn't. It's interesting to observe how these short answers can keep the conversation dynamic and engaging. As you practice this with a partner, ask questions like, "Did you enjoy your dinner?" and respond accordingly. This interaction will help reinforce your understanding of both asking and answering questions in the past simple tense. In the next slide, we'll explore how to contextualize your responses with time markers, enriching your conversations even further. Let's keep up the momentum. Now that we've mastered the art of asking questions and providing short answers in the past simple tense, let's move forward and explore how to add context to our sentences using time markers. This is a crucial element that helps us specify exactly when something happened, making our conversations clearer and more engaging. Time markers are words or phrases that indicate a specific time in the past. They help us paint a fuller picture of our experiences. For example, consider the word yesterday. It's one of the most common time markers we use in daily conversations. When you say, "I walked to school yesterday," you immediately let your listener know not only what you did, but also when you did it. This adds important context, making your statement more meaningful. Similarly, phrases like last week, last month, or last year serve to provide a time frame for past actions. For instance, saying, "She visited her family last month," tells us about the action and the time it took place. Notice how these time markers transform our sentences, giving them a natural flow and helping others understand our timeline better. Another useful time marker is ago. When you say, "They arrived 2 days ago," you're indicating how long it's been since the action occurred. This can help others grasp the sequence of events more easily. As you practice incorporating these time markers into your sentences, think about how they enhance your ability to convey past experiences. In the next slide, we will contrast affirmative and negative statements, seeing how these time markers work in different contexts. Let's keep building on this knowledge. Now that we've explored how to add context to our sentences with time markers, let's dive into an important distinction: affirmative versus negative statements. This is a key concept that helps you communicate clearly whether an action took place or not. When we make an affirmative statement, we're simply stating that something happened. For example, if I say, "I played tennis," it clearly indicates that I engaged in that activity. Similarly, "She cooked dinner" tells us about her action. Notice how these statements convey a sense of completion and clarity. Now, let's see how these sentences change when we shift to the negative form. Instead of saying, "I played tennis," we say, "I didn't play tennis." Here, we introduce the auxiliary verb did with not, which negates the action. This structure is fascinating because while we're indicating the past through did, the main verb play returns to its base form, making it play rather than played. This pattern holds true for all verbs. For instance, "She cooked dinner" becomes "she didn't cook dinner." By using didn't, we clearly express that she did not perform that action. It's interesting to observe how this transformation maintains the same subject but changes the meaning completely. Think about how this applies in everyday conversations. If someone asks if you studied for a test, you might respond, "I studied," or if you didn't, you would say, "I didn't study." This shift allows you to communicate your experiences accurately. As we continue, we'll further explore how to apply these concepts in practice, reinforcing your ability to express yourself in English. Let's keep building on this foundation. Now that we've distinguished between affirmative and negative statements, let's move forward and tackle an exciting challenge: vocabulary building. This is an essential part of mastering any language, and today we'll focus on 10 regular verbs that are fundamental in everyday conversations. These verbs are work, talk, listen, cook, clean, dance, visit, walk, enjoy, and study. Each of these verbs follows a simple pattern when we use them in the past simple tense, which we've been practicing. For example, work becomes worked, and talk becomes talked. Notice how easy it is to change these verbs by simply adding ed at the end. I encourage you to create a sentence for each of these verbs in the past simple. For instance, you might say, "I worked on my project yesterday," or "She cooked dinner last night." This practice not only reinforces your understanding of the verb forms, but also helps you use them in context, making your English more fluid and natural. Think about how you can use these verbs in your daily life. Did you enjoy a movie recently? You could say, "I enjoyed the movie." Or, if you visited a friend, you might express that by saying, "I visited my friend last weekend." As you write these sentences down or say them aloud, you'll find that they become part of your active vocabulary. This is a practical way to internalize the language. In the next slide, we'll put this vocabulary to the test with an exercise that connects your past experiences in a fun way. Let's keep up the great work. Continuing our journey, let's dive into an engaging exercise that will help us apply what we've learned so far about the past simple tense. We've discussed how to form affirmative and negative statements, as well as how to use time markers and regular verbs. Now, it's time to put that knowledge into practice with a fun activity about yesterday's routine. Imagine you are telling a friend about your day yesterday. To make this exercise interactive, I want you to complete the story below by filling in the blanks with the correct past simple forms of the verbs provided in parentheses. This will reinforce your understanding of how we transform these verbs to describe actions that happened in the past. For example, we have Maria, who started her day by waking up early. What do you think the past simple form of wake up is? That's right, it's woke up. Then she cooked breakfast, listened to music, walked to the park, and enjoyed the fresh air. These actions not only illustrate her routine, but also bring our focus back to those time markers we discussed earlier. You can visualize her day and see how each action connects smoothly. At night, Maria studied English and watched a series. Notice how all these activities are tied together in the narrative of her day, illustrating the flow of events. This exercise is a fantastic way to practice forming sentences that reflect your own experiences. Once you complete the exercise, I encourage you to share your answers with your classmates. This will foster a collaborative learning environment and allow you to see how others express similar ideas. In the next slide, we will take a closer look at the verb to be in the past, which has its own unique rules. Let's keep building on this knowledge. Moving forward in our journey, let's explore an important aspect of the past. Simple tense, the verb to be. Unlike the regular verbs we've discussed, to be has a unique way of forming its past tense, which is crucial to understand. Instead of adding ed, to be transforms into two distinct forms, was and were. This distinction is vital because was is used with singular subjects like I, he, she, and it, while were is used with plural subjects and the pronoun you. For example, you might say, I was happy, or they were excited. Notice how these forms help us express states of being, conditions, and identities in the past, rather than just actions. Think about it in everyday situations. If you were reminiscing about a family gathering, you might say, "We were all together last year." This conveys a sense of belonging and connection to that moment in time. Similarly, when discussing a past event, you could say, "She was the star of the show," highlighting her role at that specific time. It's interesting to observe how "to be" can also indicate feelings or conditions. For instance, you could express, "I was tired after the long day." Here, "was" not only states a fact, but also gives insight into your emotional state at that moment. As we continue, we'll take a closer look at when to use "was" versus "were" in the next slide, providing you with practical examples to solidify your understanding. Let's keep building on this foundation of knowledge. Now that we've explored the unique forms of the verb "to be" in the past, let's delve into how we can effectively use "was" and "were" in our sentences. Remember, "was" is reserved for singular subjects like I, he, she, and it, while "were" is used for plural subjects and the pronoun you. For example, we might say, "I was happy," reflecting a personal feeling or state at a specific time. Similarly, you could express, "She was tired," which tells us about her condition after a long day. These sentences show how "was" helps us convey emotions and states of being in the past. On the other hand, when we refer to multiple subjects, we switch to "were." For instance, "They were friends" illustrates a relationship that existed at a certain time. Or, if you want to indicate that a group was late, you could say, "We were late." Notice how these forms help us paint a clearer picture of past situations. It's also essential to understand how to form negative statements with "was" and "were." For "was," we simply add "not" to create "wasn't," as in, "I wasn't hungry." Likewise, for "were," we say "weren't," like in, "They weren't ready." These negative forms allow us to express the absence of a state or condition, which is just as important for effective communication. Think about how you can use these forms in your everyday conversations. When sharing past experiences, consider how saying, "I wasn't there," or "we were excited," can convey different meanings and emotions. As we continue to build on this knowledge, the next slide will guide us through some common mistakes learners make with these forms, helping you to avoid pitfalls and communicate more clearly. Let's keep progressing together. Continuing our journey, let's address some common challenges that learners face when using the past simple tense. It's important to recognize these pitfalls so you can communicate more effectively and confidently. One frequent mistake is forgetting to add the ed ending to regular verbs. For example, if you say, "I play soccer yesterday," it sounds incorrect. The proper way to express that past action is, "I played soccer yesterday." Notice how just adding that ed changes the meaning to reflect something that has already happened. It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference in clarity. Another common error involves using the negative form. Some learners might say, "I didn't played," but remember, in English, we use the base form of the verb after didn't. So the correct sentence is, "I didn't play." This is a crucial point to remember, as using the correct form helps you express your thoughts accurately. Additionally, let's consider the confusion between "was" and "were." For instance, someone might say, "They was tired," which is incorrect. The correct form is, "They were tired." This distinction is essential, as it reflects whether you are speaking about a singular or plural subject. It's interesting to observe how these small errors can lead to misunderstandings in conversation. By being aware of them, you can improve your communication skills significantly. As we move forward, we'll reinforce your understanding with a quick quiz that will help consolidate everything we've learned so far. This will be a fun way to test your skills and see how well you can apply the past simple tense in different contexts. Let's keep building on this foundation together. Moving forward in our journey, let's put our knowledge of the past simple tense to the test with a quick quiz. This will help solidify what we've learned so far and make sure you feel confident using these forms in your everyday conversations. First, let's look at the sentence. "She took a book last night." Think about the correct past form of the verb to read. Remember, we don't say readed or reads, but rather read, pronounced like read. This small detail is crucial as it shows that the action happened in the past. Next, consider the sentence. They saw Kak to the party. What's the correct negative form here? It's easy to mix up, but remember we should say didn't go, not didn't went or didn't goes. The base form of the verb after didn't is essential to remember. For the third question, you enjoy the concert? Here, we are asking about a past experience. What's the right form of the auxiliary verb? The correct choice is did, as it sets the question in the past. Now, let's think about this statement. He was very tired yesterday. Which form should you choose? It's important to use was here, as it fits with singular subjects. Lastly, we have we spoke English for 2 hours. Here, what's the right past form of study? You should select studied, which reflects that completed action in the past. Take a moment to reflect on these sentences. Notice how each choice reflects your understanding of the past, simple tense. After this quiz, we'll dive into how to connect your knowledge with real-life storytelling. Let's see how well you can apply what you've learned. Now that we've completed our quiz and reinforced our understanding of the past simple tense, let's transition into a practical application of everything we've learned. Moving forward in our journey, we'll explore how to connect our knowledge of past tense verbs to real-life storytelling. The past simple is truly a powerful tool when it comes to narrating genuine experiences. It allows us to share our stories and memories in a way that others can easily understand. For instance, consider this example. Last weekend, I visited my grandparents. We cooked together and talked for hours. I really enjoyed the time with them. Notice how the use of the past simple verbs visited, cooked, and enjoyed brings the story to life, making it relatable and engaging. Now, it's your turn to share your own story. Think about a recent experience you had and try to incorporate at least 3 regular verbs in the past tense, along with a time marker like last weekend, yesterday, or a few days ago. For example, you might say, yesterday I walked in the park and listened to music with my friends. This not only uses the past simple correctly, but also paints a vivid picture of what you did. As you write your story, think about how the verbs you choose help convey your emotions and experiences. It's interesting to observe how sharing these moments can enhance your speaking and writing skills, making your conversations more dynamic and enjoyable. After you've crafted your story, we will wrap up our course by discussing the key to maintaining your fluency in English. Let's dive into this exciting exercise and make your past experiences come alive. As we reach the end of our course, let's take a moment to recap the key points we've covered. We've established that the past simple tense is foundational for telling stories and describing completed events. By mastering this tense, you can share your experiences clearly and effectively. We also emphasize the importance of practicing regularly. Listening to songs and dialogues helps you identify past verbs and improves your listening skills. This active listening is essential for developing fluency, transforming grammatical rules into natural speech over time. Now, as you advance in your learning, it's important to look ahead to the next stages. You'll soon be diving into irregular verbs and more complex tenses, which will further enrich your ability to communicate in English. Before we conclude, I encourage you to take on one final challenge. Write a short paragraph about a personal achievement, making sure to include at least 3 regular verbs in the past tense, along with a time expression. This exercise will not only reinforce what you've learned, but also help you express your thoughts and feelings about your accomplishments. I want to sincerely thank you for your dedication and participation throughout this course. Remember, what you've learned is not just theoretical. It's a practical toolkit you can apply in your daily life. Consistency is key, so feel free to review the material whenever you need a refresher. Congratulations on completing this course. This is a significant step in your journey toward fluency. Keep practicing, stay curious, and enjoy sharing your stories. You have the skills to continue growing and improving. Thank you once again, and best of luck on your ongoing language journey. If you are watching on YouTube, check the video description. It has the step-by-step guide on how to get your certificate. If you are watching on Zanti Academy or pveduca.com, mark this lesson as completed to finish the course and unlock your certificate.